I would use a spinny chair for dramatic effect, but I don't have one. Hello, my name is Eric Sperry, and you're watching the first in a series of 3 videos I'm doing to bring up and discuss important environmental issues facing Southeast Asia. This video is going to be about water. The next videos will be about air pollution and environmental conservation, mainly deforestation. Sweet, sweet water. Statistics show that 100% of people need it. Water is a huge topic, and I cannot hope to tell you everything there is to know about it. But hopefully, I can spark an interest in you, and you can look up these matters more closely yourself, and together, through education, we can make a difference. I am going to talk about the most immediate issues facing Southeast Asia, mainly water availability and water pollution. Now, this is important because Southeast Asia is a very large area of the world, with many, many people. According to countrymeters.info, the population of China alone exceeds 1.25 billion people. That's almost a third of the world population. With a population that size and growth, it becomes quickly apparent that the finite amount of water in that area can be a problem. Now, water is a natural resource, obviously. Despite this, water usage and water rights are heavily politicized issues, which means that water problems, like pollution and access, are transnational issues, especially when the water in question has multiple sources or traverses through multiple regions of a continent. Policymakers in these areas are under a lot of stress to alleviate issues for their people and to diminish trouble with their neighbors. According to uniscap.org, Asia and the Pacific has the highest annual water withdrawal of all the world's regions, owing to its geographic size, large population, and irrigation practice. It's estimated that up to 80% of water used in Asia goes to agricultural purposes, and up to 60% of that is lost due to evaporation before the water even gets to the crops. This is an alarming statistic. An article on Nature.com called A Sustainable Plan for China's Drinking Water clarifies that only 2% of water used in China is actually used for drinking and cooking. The Times of India recently published an article that warned that 22 of India's 32 big cities face daily water shortages. Looking at these statistics, the problem becomes clear. This is a case of water everywhere, but it ain't going in my belly. The International Weekly Journal of Science published an article last year that estimated that 300 million people in China face shortages of drinking water as well. The pressing issue when it comes to water availability isn't always necessarily that there isn't enough water, but it's not being used in an efficient nor sustainable way. Though only a small amount of water is actually used for drinking, the problem's exaggerated because so many people are doing the drinking. Countries like China and India that have immense populations are where you generally see the biggest shortages of water. Another issue with this is that the water that is available isn't always safe to drink. Asia, especially China, kind of has a reputation for being bad with the environment. Like China and the environment are on bad terms. In an effort to rapidly industrialize itself to catch up to other major world economies, sustainable practices and environmental safeguards have more or less been tossed aside. The same study I mentioned earlier by the International Weekly Journal of Science states that 190 million people in China become sick and 60,000 people die each year just from drinking contaminated water. Greenpeace has done some investigating here and found that a new sort of village, wittingly dubbed the Cancer Village, has begun to spring up in China, mainly downstream from factories and plants. Due to lack of regulation, factories can literally dump their waste into rivers. These are the same rivers people are drinking and washing. It's actually drinking that water too. But sacrifices must be made. And some people don't even get that much. Asia is home to the most people, biggest walls, and the most dams. Most of southern Asia's transnational rivers are heavily dammed, including the Mekong and the Yangtze. WorldAtlas.com lists Asia's biggest rivers, and the Mekong and the Yangtze are both top 3. The fact that these rivers are being dammed at such a rapid pace not only hinders ecosystem development, but also cuts off water to those down dam. Now, to show you visually what dams do to rivers, I rolled up this piece of paper into a funnel shape and stuffed the inside with lots of paper towels. I give you permission to try this at home. Now, the paper towels represent the dam, and this water represents the water of the river. Watch what happens when I pour the water downstream and into the dam. Only a little bit's coming out. It's kind of making a mess. I should throw this out before it starts leaking through the paper. That's from making my shoes wet. Back to information. Now, After China built the Three Gorges Dam on the Yangtze in 2012, which the United States Geological Survey says is the world's largest hydroelectric dam, China set aside a section of the river called the Upper Yangtze Native and Rare Fish Reserve to re-establish lost habitat from its construction. China then proposed the construction of a new dam called the Zhangnan, I think, which basically, if it were constructed, would re-establish this habitat to almost 70 rare fish and aquatic creatures. The creation of dams negatively impacts the environment in many ways. They require explosives, large equipment which create pollution, sediment runoff, and flooding. Plus, once dams are made, they blockade off sections of rivers which inhibit migratory patterns of animals. An article on EastAsiaForum.org estimated that China owned half of the world's dams. And Yale's Environment 360 published an article in 2009 that stated that at that time, China alone had 26,000 dams, more than any country in the world. Now, besides the environmental effects and the limitation of water availability downstream, damming large portions of any river results in flooding. And hitherto, I don't know if I used that word right, this flooding displaces people in the area, unless they're good swimmers, which they might be, but the Yale article hitherto mentioned estimated displacement of up to 300,000 people from the construction of just 12 dams on a smaller river that runs into the Yangtze, called the Qinshan. Now, this is a fraction of the number of people displaced by the Three Gorges Dam, which was estimated to be 1.2 million people, according to an article by Scientific American in 2009. Basically, Southern Asia has many problems with water, as I pointed out. These countries need to develop better infrastructure to give their people access to more and cleaner water. Slowing down on the industrialization might be a good idea too. I mean, having a good economy is a great goal, but is it really worth it if your people are dying from drinking their water? More efficient agricultural practices would also help alleviate these issues. As distances increase between crops and water sources, so do the evaporation rates before the water even gets to the crop. Shortening the distances between the crops and the water sources, or growing less water-dependent crops in dry seasons, would help this. Also, since these countries are undergoing large projects in hydroelectricity, they should build bigger dams further upstream instead of lots of little ones downstream. This would increase the hydroelectric output of these big dams and help keep large sections of the river downstream untouched. This would help preserve precious ecosystems, as well as prevent war-zone scale displacement of people. These countries need to make international policy and hold each other accountable for them, for the benefit of everybody. Water is not limitless, and Southern Asia is starting to realize that. Water is becoming more scarce due to high and inefficient use for agriculture and industry, pollution, and damming. And these problems are compounded by the large and increasing populations in these areas. Conclusively, I ask you to appreciate the little things. In my next video, I'll be discussing the topic of air pollution in Southern Asia. Until then, keep it fetch, y'all. Oh, almost hit the mirror. I'm not sure if I have to give credit for the music. It's Eye of the Tiger by Survivor.